Good evening. I'd like you all to take your seats. Please. So the topic that has been given is that time needs to change. I'm Suchitra. I'm a doctor of philosophy, and I have for you some views from physicists as well as philosophers on the concept of time. Because I feel that we need to understand this thing called time. Have we invented time for ourselves, or was it always there? And what is the nature of time? Where is it going? What has happened before, and where are we now? Firstly, I want to thank you all for making time for this session and for being here attentively to focus on time. We have always felt and been told by poets as well as the conventional thought is that time is like a river, and once it flows by, it doesn't come back, it just goes on and on. So that time is moving is what we've been told. But if you really look at your own life, you see you were an infant, and you became a child, you became an adolescent, and a full-grown adult, and then you're advancing in age. So who is moving here? It's us. We are moving, and time actually is static. We are in a flux. So this is what the philosophers have said. And in context of Sanatana Dharma, we have the Vedas. And if you see the first shlok of Rig Veda, it is Om Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Meaning, out of nothing comes everything. And when you take everything out of that nothing, everything still remains. This is the very first opening of Rig Veda. Let's move to what the scientists say. And up till the 20th century, it was thought that the universe had 3 dimensions. And then came Einstein, and he brought in the dimension of time. And he said a very, very interesting thing, that time is a dimension of space. We all know about his theory of relativity and how time slows down when things are not going well, and time fleets when it's happy times. But if time is a dimension of space, and we look at space, we'll see things are moving inside space. The space is not moving, things are moving. Now, could it be that time is also like that? Things are moving within time, but it's not, time itself is not moving. It's like you have different rooms in this hotel, different halls, and different things are happening at the same time. It's happening because of, for want of a more adequate word, I'm saying time, but it's just happening in that space actually. I also want to put the view of Osho. He always comes up with very iconoclastic things, and he gives the example of his uncle who's very fond of playing chess. And it's a very long, drawn-out game, and then you go on making these strategic moves. And he would say, "Why do you play this game, uncle?" He said, "Well, it's a pastime, and I do it to kill time." And don't we all do so many things in our life just to kill time? And then Osho had the classic answer back for that, and he said, "Sorry, but to tell you, you are not killing time, it's time that's killing you." We also have Stephen Hawking, who has written a book and you may have been familiar with it. It's about the brief history of time. He talks about the Big Bang. That's when everything starts moving. But he also talks about the Big Crunch, where it goes in reverse. So everything that was there finally comes to here and now. And what he says is that time always moves forward. It cannot be reversed once it's moving. And we can see the future only to the point that we can imagine it, but if we were to break a piece of mirror, we will not be able to see how the pieces are going to fall and break and assemble together. That is impossible. So that's his rationale for not being able to see time, which is in the future. But according to him, time is not fixed. He brings in light. The constant speed of light. If we are moving, and this the scientists have corroborated, if we are moving at a certain speed towards light, and then we are moving away from the light at the same speed, because of the speed of light, you're going to lose 2 seconds. And that's why we come to the phrase, that point in time. We also have a little guru, Sadhguru, and I find his thoughts very interesting. And he talks about what we love to discuss in sometimes trivial ways, nirvana, moksha, and shunya. And what he says is that time and space are constructs of the physical world. If you go beyond the physical, then if you are going towards moksha or nirvana or the shunya, then you've crossed those barriers. And then there is no time because you've actually dissolved into space. So we come back to the fact about space. I also would like to talk about Shiva, whose name is Trikal, and one of his wives, form of Shakti, is Kali. Again, time, because Shiva is supposed to be beyond time. The time, the rules, the constraints of time do not apply to him. It's boundless. This is what the physicists and what the philosophers and what are scriptures, some of the thoughts of time that I have put forward to you. But as a healer, as a laughter therapist, and as somebody who has been in touch with people who have been tormented, I feel time is the biggest healer. Whatever we may call it, yes, it's our own invention, but it is. You just have to give time. Now, I would like to know your views on time, if I may. May I start with you, Minty? What when you say time, what does it come to? I know we're always running from here to there, but when it comes to time, have you thought of it in an abstract way? Or what do you associate it with?
Time is either bound or infinite. It's both.
So we're talking of something which is absolutely one second, and then you're talking of eternity.
Eternity. It's infinite.
So that's the whole.
Finite.
Yes.
For me, it's both in different circumstances, in a different point of time.
That's right.
Yeah.
When you think about it, it is. It can be both. You can stretch it, and that's what they say. You can define the second. You can define the nanosecond, but you can't define time. Yeah, that's
infinity.
Yeah, I'm sure Lumina would have some interesting thoughts as well on time.
Yeah, the way I see it, time is not bound actually. Time is a very human construct phenomenon of sorts. Because, like you said, we're born, but then there was time even before we were born. And if we just look at a 24-hour cycle, we determine or we make it finite by calculating it in 24 hours just because the earth rotates and it takes that much time. So to make sense to what we don't understand, we have given it demarcated intervals of time, right? So it's almost like this. This is what time is. You know, you're still moving and time still exists.
Exactly.
So, or it's just that you exist, but different phenomena occur at different intervals, and we can't quite explain that. So we define it as.
I don't have that. Yeah, it's like when you're going on a train journey and you're just looking outside. Oh, the trees are moving. No, it's you who's moving. Trees standing where it is. So that's Shiva, or that concept.
So the capacity of a human mind to understand, we need to stagger it into frames, capture it into frames.
We do, because we actually need to manage ourselves when we talk about time management. It's actually how do we manage ourselves. But when we close our eyes, we are there in that eternal world. Nothing.
Right. Which is also why when you meditate, when people meditate, right? At that brief moment when you actually are finally in that zone of meditation, you've lost track of time. But when you do open your eyes and say, hey, I was somewhere else, and you realize that there has been a lapse in time. But how long you are in that moment is indefinite. You can't calculate that. You don't know.
That's true. That's why I meditate with a timer. And Sinjini, you have written a wonderful book where the protagonist is actually absolutely in a fluid motion of in a time zone. So tell us about that.
To your question, I actually had a different answer.
Okay.
Of course, I had to research a lot on elixir in terms of the aspect that in dream, our perception of time changes. So time moves slowly in dreams, and that forms a perspective and a very strong pillar of elixir. But having said that, Suchitra, very interestingly, I'm actually slightly consciously researching on time for my next.
Oh, wow. So please tell us what you have researched so far and what really insights you have on time.
Not exactly as a very strong non-fiction kind of a research, but I am picking on one aspect of time, which is that time really is a perspective.
Yes.
If there is something that's several light years away, and if you can look at it from here, do you look at it at, say it is 3 light years away, and you are watching it now by a very powerful telescope. You are actually watching it 3 years back.
There have been very interesting stories and movies made on that.
So what is past and what is present and what is future?
Right. And that brings me to another thought, if I may just express that right now. When again, credit to Osho, where he says that there is past, of course, that's the memory, and then the future, the imagination. But he says there's no such thing as present. He says that's what life is. It's either life or present. You're either in life or in present. You don't even have to be conscious of the present. So that's an interesting thought.
I think time has its own existence with no connection with our perception. I think that in a certain dot you have the past and the present and the future. It's not growing like this, but in the same moment you have the present and the past. Because many times it happens that suddenly I have a feeling that vision.
That's right. That's this I have been before, and I have experienced this before.
Or I can think of something, and then it happens. Afterwards, it happens. I think time, our perception of time, is not the real perception of what it is. And I think for our practical purposes, for our linguistic purposes, it has to be past and present and future tense. We've said that just for our own understanding and communication, just for ourselves. Yes, human beings are thinking in languages.
Yes.
We need
Yes.
the words,
Yes.
but there are things that existing above the words, outside the words.
That's right. That's right.
I was just
Beyond
curious now when you
everything.
just mentioned, when we talk about there's no present, and you have a past, and then you have the next moment. And then there is this concept of a parallel universe, because then that completely defies your entire perspective on time. Because there is a theory which says that at any given point in time, when you are proposed with a choice, and say for example you can take a left or a right, you choose to take a right and things happen or unfold with your right choice. But then there is an alternative parallel universe where you have taken the left. And then there's something else, and those go in parallel universe or two different possibilities, and you don't know.
Revolving doors.
And then there are multilinear aspects of time.
That's true. That's true. That's true. So it's a real enigma. Would you have any thoughts on that?
I would relate to time in two ways. One is living in the moment is time for me. No, don't think of the future and worry so much, or don't think of the past and leave it, stop living.
That's a
Live in the
wonderful
moment.
approach. Yes.
Second is time is the most precious gift. So please, even if supposing someone would have given you so much of money or so much of things, and all, that's immaterial. But if you're giving or spending some time with someone, that's the best thing. Respect it and mutually gain benefit of it.
That's true. Because the fact is that time for us on this planet is finite. You know, and that's why probably as we grow older, we start thinking more and more about these things and say, no, that perhaps it just continues and it's, you know, it's, we're not going anywhere. We never thought of all this when we were younger because we had so much to do. But these thoughts, it's also a way maybe of rationalizing ourselves, because otherwise we'll have an existential crisis. That's another theory.
Yeah, and I also like the psyche of humans, how quickly we switch to when we're young and energetic to saying, I don't have time. I don't have time. You don't have time for your family, you don't have time for your children, you don't have time for yourself. Then all of a sudden, time has lapsed. And you are at a stage of life, you have so much time, but no one has time for you.
That's right.
You have time for them, but no one has time for you.
That's the irony.
So
The
the shift from so much, I have so much time, to I have no time, to then I have so much time.
That's right.
So again, it's all in relation with time.
That's right. It affects us.
Yeah, you were saying, sorry.
I just wanted to, there is this big psychosomatic correlation to just saying, I don't have time. One of my teachers used to tell us, when you start building that, the energy around you saying that you don't have time, then time runs out for you because that becomes your reality. That's one thing. And that's exactly what happens when you then start having regrets over the time that's lost, and then that regret reflects as or manifests as symptoms of regret, where you've got a closed heart, or you don't have enough time to express what you need to say, and all of that. So, which brings me to when we say time needs to be changed, Suchitra, we're talking about regret. If we talk about regret of the past, no, not necessarily. It's just one tangent.
Yeah, sure.
When we say time needs to be changed, and we're looking upon the past because we just foresee or we expect the future. If we're looking about lost time, we only think of it in terms of lost time if we've passed or whiled away the time without doing something constructive, which we think about when we pause. And there is that shift again. What needs to change is not exactly what happened then, but what you can do now, which again brings you.
That's right. I mean, they say that dream would be. I mean, it'll stay at the dream stage, but then if you put a goal and you put a deadline, then it comes true. Yes. Peter, what do you think about it? Thought about it?
Time teaches you a lot. Time makes you experience so much, and then you realize that I didn't destiny, and this time is meant to be this way.
Good times, bad times. We also label times. Yes.
And sometimes, and then again, time gives you opportunity that now you can do it. Now it is giving you that power in your hand that you can change your time, and what you make of it. and how you react to it and how best you can make of it, because now suddenly time gives you abundance. And now how you do your time, what do you want to make of your life?
So it's always you and time linked. So it's time's not an entity in itself, it's how you are utilizing it, how you are using that opportunity. Yeah.
I'm totally loving what a table topic this is turning out to be. But no, just
Please.
add
Yeah, I would like to get everybody.
one more perspective to it. I mean, to quote Descartes,
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, therefore I am.
I think therefore I am. Now, say for example, right now I'm thinking about, just in a way of musing, thinking about last night's dinner.
Okay.
What is time in my mind now? I'm feeling that emotion, I'm feeling that, terrible dinner or great dinner, wow, we need to go. I'm reliving that emotion of that time. So is time fluid in my present tense at the moment?
For you it is.
It is.
For you it is.
So
yeah.
is time a fluid concept?
I think it is. I mean, firstly, it is a concept. It's an abstract concept. Now, you can do what you want with it.
I think taking on from what I have been wanting to say, time flows.
Time flows like that. Started like that. Yeah, that's the conventional view.
Time flows, and as you said, it's what you make out of it. So, like taking it to a business concept, people say, you're drawing multiple hats and you're doing so much. Where do you find the time? You can create time. Yes, we have the definition of 24 hours in a day, but you can create the time to do multiple things if you just plan it well, and if you put your heart to it, if you follow it with passion and
That's
you want
that
to
management,
I
yeah.
add something that you don't look at time as a timetable.
Yes.
Look at time as passion. That life is passion, this time, and automatically things fall into place. But if you start thinking, I don't have time to this, I have to cook, and my children, and my business, I have to travel, and my boss, then you go mad.
You know
So
what it
stress.
translates into? Time management.
Yes, that's what I said.
It's
Let's say,
multitasking.
I remember I read somewhere that if you have something to put in it, then a day can have 1,000 pockets.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a day like today.
Honestly, I've never heard about time this much.
I know, that was the idea. We need to really,
For
because
me, now this moment is one.
Yes.
So for me, the time is being in present.
In
That's the only thing that comes to my mind.
Okay.
But, no,
All right.
so many different perspectives.
That's
Amazing.
true. That's true. Your views on time.
I think it's interesting and something I kind of think about a lot. I'm almost 20, and so I think about like a quarter of my life
Uh-huh.
being gone and like what I've accomplished in that versus what I have
Okay.
to accomplish in the last 3 quarters. And I think it is kind of about how time passes at different speeds depending on what you're doing. And if it's something that you're passionate about, it's much easier to invest large amounts of time and they seem to pass a lot faster.
That's right. That's right. Well, in our scriptures, it's given that we have also divided into 4 parts. The brahmacharya and the grahast and the vanprastha and the sannyas. Would you know about these? No. Okay. So the first 25 years is you're a student. You're learning all the time. The next 25 years, you're a householder. You have duties and you devote your time to that. And then after 50, it is, at that time they said vanprastha, in the sense go to the forest. But it was basically that you detach yourself a bit and you start thinking about why you're here, and those questions start coming. And then the last 25 years, if you live 75 to 100, it's about renunciation. And you leave this world. While you're there in the world, you leave, and you retire totally. It's not, you don't have to actually leave and go into a cave or go into the mountains, but it's attachment. So you renunciate everything, and then you focus on the great beyond. May I have your thoughts? You've been listening very attentively.
Time is a big question.
Yes,
Really?
yes.
It's very simple and very complex. A big struggle in my life because my inner self knows that time doesn't exist.
You do know that? Wow. Let's give an applause to him. We'd like to reach that stage.
But in this world, you have to deal with time, and time is what forces you to make choices.
That's right. You have to choose because you don't have time for everything. So, yeah.
And I'm
Prioritize, that's what you mean?
Yeah, you always to choose.
Yes.
And I really hate it sometimes.
I know. We do because we want it all. We want it all.
That's it. That's the point. Because I want all, and in every moment.
Exactly.
And the
Yes.
worst is when you spend so much time, right? You spend so much time making that decision, and then all of a sudden you realize, lost it, you needed to make the other one.
Yes, it happens all the time
Then
too.
you lost that chunk of time as well.
Right. True. But then you don't know the learning that has happened and that you needed to go through that to reach that, or realize that. And I'm with you.
Yes, that time to me is the continuous struggle to be in the moment because I work as I would like to say technologist, but a project thing for the city and for improvement.
Oh, is it?
So I live all
Town planning? Are you
Yeah,
into that?
yes, I'm planning and so I live in a place that doesn't exist now.
Okay.
And I have to come back every time because in the job, when I go to the job, in my job I plan and I study and I invent things and so, and I have a schedule very far in the year, so I know what I'm doing in October. So when I need to say what day is today or
that's right.
when is still holidays or not. It's something. It seems stupid, but with our nowadays technologies, you feel that you have an unset time and an unset space.
You'll be surprised that happens in a lot of professions because you're constantly making a blueprint of something, but then you got to come back to base.
Yes, and
that's
me.
where the
And
meditation
me.
which you spoke about helps. You've got to come back to base. That's right. I think that's true.
For me, time is like breath. It's always there, but then you just don't realize. And then when something goes wrong,
Very important point. We take time for granted. Yeah.
it's always
That's
there.
right,
You just
yeah.
don't realize.
You
right?
don't
You just take it for granted.
That's exactly. Yes. Something about time? Would you like to have some thoughts on time? Yes.
So time can also be think on a very broader perspective, like not on an individual perspective, but the time this universe and Earth has taken to reach a certain consciousness. So, for example, all of the prophets, they came at a particular time, and right now many of the humans, they are ascending to more spiritual practices. So I would say that is the time to ascend to then more people, they get to know more about compassion, they get to know more about zero states of consciousness, and that is the astrological and astronomical time of Aquarius that is started just now.
Okay.
So I would want to bring that perspective on the table.
Yeah, that's very interesting because even when we talk of our scriptures, we have the yugs, you know. We had the Satyug and we had the Treta, the Dwapar, and then Kali. Yeah. In Dwapar ended when Krishna left his body and Kali started. And like you said, the consciousness it's much easier. That's the idea that in Satyug they had to do a lot of tapasya and fasting and a whole lot of things to attain those states. And later on too, there was a very clear good and evil, and battles had to be fought, and all that happened.
So that
But
time
now
it
it's
really
like
inspires
it's the
people.
good and evil is in each one of us, and the struggle is within, and we have to evolve. And I would like to agree with you that the consciousness of mankind is going higher.
Is the highest
It's
because we've entered, actually, we've just finished the transition of Kali Yuga and we've entered
You mean you
Satyug.
crossed the peak?
We are almost towards the end,
Absolutely.
and we are just about to enter Satyug, the golden age. And guys, this is the best time to be alive. It's the best time now 24 hours are not 24 anymore, they're only 12, right? So I think this is a wonderful celebration of life that we need to be in.
Exactly. I love that this is the best time, and the best time is here and now. The best place is right here. Yes, you would like to say something?
Yeah.
Yes.
Connecting back to there, what is happening in the science and technology side is when we're talking about bots coming in, when we're talking about artificial intelligence. So what is going to happen to the human? Right? When you're going to connect these two, bots will be doing a lot of things which we were doing.
Mechanically, which we were
very
doing.
much. And then we will get more evolved. More evolved, and we'll start doing hot things. Higher order thinking jobs.
Because we will have more
because we have that power.
time. We'll have more time. We don't have to do the mountain. The drudgery is taken away already. And we're look at us, the way we've all connected here. From different places, being here. This is again, it's a sign of progress.
Very interesting take on this. I'm sorry, but I just spoke earlier on the moving away from sowing the seed and nurturing the spirit. Okay, and in that one, I have to say this: thank you for all the AI in the world, because I've planted the seed the tree under which I'm going to go and spend my next few decades, because the robots are going to take over everything that I do. So I'm going to have a lot of time on my hands.
That's right.
It's a welcome actually.
Yes.
Just to in line with what she said in terms of the consciousness and movement, it's very interesting because I recently was reading Swami Yukteswar, if you have heard of, the autobiography of Yogi, the Swami who was the guru of this Yogananda. So there is this small booklet that he has written where he says that the planetary motions, and I'm not a big believer, I have been an atheist all my life, but I found it very interesting. He wrote that the way the planetary movements are happening, this is the time when the earth is taking an overall consciousness shift from science and technology towards spirituality and self-actualization. And this is exactly the reason why we are having this midlife crisis, so rampantly, and there is a positive shift towards coming back to our inner self rather than scientific technological advances.
That's right. Because it's increased to so much. We have gone out so much. Now we have to go within.
And again, on the other hand, this is also the time for the reincarnation of Buddha into the Metta incarnation, which is loving kindness, away from all the avatars of having to fight against evil. This is now the time of loving kindness. It's interesting how how these pieces, apparently different, but speak the same thing.
That's right. Thank you so much for all your perspectives. I think together we have enriched this session, a short session. We've put in a lot of thought and power into it and stretched it as much as possible. I'd like to end with the same Rigveda prayer. With your permission, can I do the chant? And if you know it, please join me. Om Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you so much.
Kindled our thoughts, and now we are in the time of that.
Any other speaker?
No, there isn't. Okay, so one will take this one, then we'll do a fun one. Alright.
She's gonna do a ha 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 ha.
Okay.
You do that.
I will. Okay, guys. Now I want you to look at your watches. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody look at your watch. Doesn't matter. Look at mine. Look at mine. Everybody look at the watch.
Yes.
Okay, one click like that. And now I'll tell you, it's time to laugh. So.